Holland Hubert speaking, calling in from Prince George's County, Maryland. I am a sophomore at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, majoring in biology on the pre-medical track. I am an alumni member of the Patriots Nesby Junior Chapter and want to welcome you to the Patriots Nesby Junior Chapter podcast. Let's keep it moving on the podcast, sponsored by SA Tech, Northrop Grumman, and the Richmond Foundation. Today we have with us Ms. Kia Rorie. Ms. Rorie is the owner of K Squared, a technology consulting firm. This company provides consulting services to the federal government, specifically in regards to data warehousing. They convert that data into visualization that makes sense or pretty pictures. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. Before we start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and this company that you started?
Sure. Thank you, Holland, for the lovely introduction. I appreciate being here. I'm so happy to be able to talk to you guys today a little bit about K Squared and technology. So K Squared Technology Consulting was a business that I founded in 2015 when I was hitting a glass ceiling again within the corporate structure. And I had just had a daughter. She's now 8. She was a little over 1 at the time. And I was looking for something that would allow me to have the flexibility so that I could be there for her, but also it allowed me to participate and be inside of the growth perspective of a company. And I was really working hard and outworking a lot of my counterparts, and there was no place else for me to go. And I wanted to go up. I thought that I belonged in the C-suite, and there wasn't room for me in the C-suite. So I made my own. And K Squared Technology Consulting has been in existence since then. We are an economically disadvantaged women-owned small business, and we are a minority-owned small business, and we provide opportunities for people of the diaspora, and we are providing consulting services to the federal government. We have done some commercial work in the past, but primarily it's the federal government focusing on data warehousing, like you said, to create the pretty pictures, and cybersecurity and information assurance.
Wow, that's amazing. And I really love the fact that it's woman-owned and targets minorities, or it's owned by minorities. So that's beautiful. So one of the other questions I have for you today is, where did you specifically start in technology, and essentially what's your foundation?
So my dad, may he rest in peace, was an accountant by trade, but I'm a little bit older than you, just a little bit. And when computers came out, and they're like the first home computers came out in like the late 80s, my dad went out and got one, and he like built one. And then, I don't know, some class project or something I was working on in school, he brought one for myself. And back then we had to create command line programs to actually get like the word processing programs to load, and to get the, would-be Excel to load. So it was a lot slower, and it required a lot more interaction from us as the users to make things work. And you had to know a little something about computers to make things work. And that's actually where I got my start, was working on that, on those old computers back in the day, before other people had computers. And my mom was a business education teacher in New York, and she taught women, primarily minorities, to further their careers through education, teaching them basic assistant skills and how to use word processing programs and things of that nature. So it's kind of in my blood.
That's actually really inspirational. I love that. So, seeing as where you are now, what degrees and certifications do you have that you feel have been beneficial towards you in your career?
So here's an interesting story. I have a degree in English from the University of Maryland at College Park, and it is not a computer degree. My counselor in high school actually indicated that I was not smart enough to be in the computer science major. So I did not pursue a computer science education. I did pursue a business education, and accounting too was not my forte, and it was a requirement for business in college. So I wound up being an English major. I got a master's degree in relational database technologies, and that is in computer science. But I did that many years later, and the certifications that I got that really helped me with my career were Microsoft certifications. I became a Microsoft certified professional. Became a Microsoft certified developer, a Microsoft certified database administrator, and those really helped push me along in the technology field with just the English degree, because that was what allowed people to see I had technical skills, but really it was my ability to communicate with people that made me invaluable to my employers and to the agencies that I worked for.
Wow. And so that kind of goes into my next question about, do you have to have a technology degree to pursue a career in technology? But it seems like that's not necessarily the case, where you can go in with different majors and, as long as you have that foundation, that you can still pursue that dream.
Absolutely. I 100% advocate this all of the time. I think that there's a strong perception that you had to be, on this computer science track from like ninth grade in order to be successful in the computer science field. And that's not true. It's really just it's simply not true. I advocate that people who are English majors and history majors and criminal justice majors, pre law majors, all of those kinds of folks should look at technology if they're interested in it, because a lot of the stuff within the cyber domain really relates to being able to coherently read and write sentences and being able to translate that information to government clients or even non-government clients at a bank, presenting to higher levels. That requires really excellent communication skills, which more often than not, the folks who have degrees that are in the liberal arts arena are geared towards having than people who have computer science degrees.
Wow, I did not know this. That is really interesting. So you really do not have to have a degree in technology to pursue that. And I feel like for a lot of the students who may not know exactly what they want to do right now, to that may be really reassuring to them.
Well, also, I think, Holland, that, especially in what are we in, Gen Z now? So in the Gen Z arena, most of your lives is spent on the phone or in some sort of computer-based learning system.
Mm-hmm.
We did 2 years of COVID learning. My kids did it as well. And you have more computer skills than most people have, in their whole bodies. You have it at your fingertips. So don't discredit the actual learning that you do when you're just sitting around playing around with TikTok or Instagram or Twitter. Like, you're doing stuff, you're creating videos, you're creating content. This is all part of being familiar with computer and technology.
Well, thank you for that advice. And so, what resources are available for software development or engineering that will help students better understand this career field?
So there's a lot of free resources out there, believe it or not. And Google does a free camp that you can do during the summertime, that you have to apply for ahead of time. Microsoft has a bunch of free resources as well, and then Microsoft has a learning box that does like natural language computer coding, so that you can create with things that you say and speak, and then it turns it into code, so that you can get familiar with how to build code. And that's out there for free as well. And PBS Kids has tons of resources for entry level computer programming as well.
Wow, and I'm actually in coding now. I'm learning Python, so I might have to check out some of those sources as well because sometimes it can
The,
be a little difficult.
the Microsoft bot has a whole Python component to it, so that would be perfect for that.
I will definitely be checking that out. Thank you. And so, my final question for you today is essentially, what advice would you give somebody who's interested in pursuing a career in your field?
I would say don't limit yourself and keep your mind open. There is so many possibilities to software engineering and all of the different portions of technology, that just because you think that you can't do it doesn't mean that you can't do it. Don't limit yourself.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such great advice from you, and it's been lovely to have you on this podcast with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad you guys got some good information out of it.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners, I hope you all enjoyed that interview. I want to thank every one of you for jumping on the Let's Keep It Moving on the podcast. We must also thank SA Tech, Northrop Grumman, and the Richmond Foundation. If you would like to hear this podcast or share it with your friends, please go to Patriots Nest Virginia website, www.patriots-ttc.org. And please send us an email at podcast@patriots-ttc.org. And let us know what you think about our show. Until our next show, let's keep it moving on the Patriots Nest Junior podcast. This is Holland signing off.